The radio crackled to life in the frozen woods of the Ardennes, carrying a voice that was calm, precise, and utterly resigned. Fire for effect. Coordinates: northing 519, easting 723. The barrage is right on us. Repeat, right on us. Bring it in. On the other end, artillery officers froze, understanding the terrible meaning of those words. The man calling in the strike was not marking a distant enemy position. He was painting a target on his own head, a solitary point of American resistance entirely encircled by over 600 seasoned German paratroopers. He was ordering his own potential destruction to save the men he led. This is not a legend of reckless sacrifice, but a profoundly tactical, deliberate, and human story of Lieutenant Colonel John R. Fox and the brutal, complex reality of the Battle of the Serchio Colonia. Introduction. The setting: a war of exhaustion and terrain. To understand the magnitude of Lieutenant Colonel Fox's decision on December 26, 1944, we must first step away from the better-known narrative of the Battle of the Bulge and immerse ourselves in the specific, grinding context of the Italian campaign. By late 1944, the Allied advance up the Italian peninsula had slowed to a bloody crawl against the formidable German Gothic line. The terrain was the enemy as much as the Wehrmacht: jagged mountain peaks, deep river valleys, and villages perched on hilltops that became natural fortresses. The fighting was characterized by small unit actions, where a single platoon or company could hold a strategic position of disproportionate importance. It was a war of observation posts, patrols, and sudden, violent eruptions of close-quarters combat. The American force in this theater was a unique and historic unit, the 92nd Infantry Division, known as the Buffalo Soldiers Division, a predominantly African-American unit with mostly white officers. Despite facing the dual hardships of entrenched racism and a skeptical high command, the 92nd was tasked with holding a critical sector of the line in the Serchio Valley region of northern Tuscany. Their mission was to prevent a German breakthrough that could threaten the Allied flank. Among them was Lieutenant Colonel John R. Fox of the 366th Infantry Regiment, a 29-year-old forward artillery observer from Cincinnati, Ohio. As a member of the 598th Field Artillery Battalion, his expertise was not in leading rifle charges, but in the precise and deadly science of calling indirect fire, the long-range artillery that could turn the tide of battle from miles away.
The Christmas Offensive and the Fall of Somma-Colonia. In late December 1944, as the Ardennes Offensive, the Battle of the Bulge, raged in northern Europe, German forces in Italy launched a supporting diversionary attack, Operation Wintergewitter, Winter Storm. Their objective was to punch through the Allied lines in the Serchio Valley, specifically targeting the positions held by the 92nd Division. The focal point was the medieval hilltop village of Somma-Colonia. Perched high above the valley, it offered commanding views. Whoever held Somma-Colonia controlled the approaches for miles. Fox, aware of the village's strategic value and the vulnerability of its small garrison, a mix of his own American infantry and brave Italian partisans, volunteered to establish an advanced observation post, OP, inside the village itself. This was an act of exceptional courage. An OP in the front-line village was the most dangerous duty an artillery observer could take. It made him the eyes of the guns, but also placed him directly in the path of any enemy assault. On Christmas Day, 1944, a deceptive quiet settled over Somma-Colonia. Fox and a handful of men occupied a second-story room in a stone house on the village's edge. His binoculars and maps spread out, his radio his only lifeline to the 155mm howitzers miles to the rear. The quiet was a ruse. In the early hours of December 26th, under cover of darkness and a dense fog, elements of the 1st Fallschirmjäger Division, elite German paratroopers, some of the finest infantry in the Wehrmacht, infiltrated the village. They had disguised themselves as civilians and slipped past outlying positions. By 4 a.m., the attack began in earnest. The small American and partisan force was overwhelmed by a coordinated, violent assault from within and without. House-to-house fighting erupted in the narrow, twisting streets. Communication lines were cut. Isolated pockets of resistance were systematically reduced. The American forces were compelled to conduct a desperate fighting retreat down the treacherous slopes to avoid complete annihilation. But one man chose to stay. The decision. The observation post becomes a fortress. As chaos engulfed Somocolonia, Fox made a conscious, tactical choice. He remained in his OP. His mission was to direct artillery, and from his vantage point, he could see the German force consolidating, moving equipment, and establishing positions. He knew that if this enemy buildup went unchecked, they would not only solidify their hold on the village, but would be poised to launch a devastating follow-on attack into the vulnerable valley below, potentially collapsing the entire sector of the 92nd Division's front. His retreating comrades believed him to be falling back with them. Instead, he radioed his battery, reporting the deteriorating situation and his intention to stay and call fire for as long as possible.
Through the morning, Fox became a one-man army, directing deadly accurate artillery barrages onto German concentrations in the village square and along the approach roads. Each radio transmission gave away his position, but each shell he called down slowed the German advance and caused significant casualties. The German commanders quickly realized this single observer was crippling their operation. They began to envelop the stone house, methodically clearing surrounding buildings. By late morning, Fox was completely surrounded, with an estimated 600 enemy soldiers now in and around Somocolonia, a significant portion of them actively hunting him. The final transmission, a calculus of sacrifice. The defining moment came when Fox observed a critical development. German troops were massing in force for what was clearly the major assault that would break out of the village and into the American rear areas. They were congregating in a courtyard and along a main street, dangerously close to his own position, but forming a perfect target for a concentrated artillery strike. He got on the radio to his battery fire directions center. What followed was a stark professional dialogue, later reconstructed from military records and the memories of those listening. Fox gave the precise map coordinates. The fire direction officer, recognizing that the coordinates were for Fox's own OP, responded with disbelief and horror. "That's right on your position. Adjust fire away. Repeat, adjust away." Fox's response was firm and final. "Fire for effect. The barrage is right on us. Repeat, right on us. Bring it in." He was not merely accepting death, he was demanding the fire mission. He understood the calculus. The destruction of his own position and himself was the necessary price to obliterate the German assault force at its forming up point. He was trading his life and his OP for the time and space his battalion and the entire regimental front needed to regroup, reinforce, and counterattack. He was saving, by military estimation, hundreds of his comrades down the line from being overrun. The artillery battery, with heavy hearts, complied. The roar of the 155mm shells firing from maximum range arced through the sky. The first rounds were on target. The massive explosions tore through the German formation, causing catastrophic losses and complete disarray. The stone house housing Fox's OP was also utterly destroyed. Aftermath and the long road to recognition. The German attack out of Somocolonia was shattered. The delay and casualties inflicted by Fox's final fire mission allowed the 92nd Division to stabilize its lines. American forces would later retake the village, finding the ruins of the OP and Fox's body amidst the debris of the German assault force. The scene provided grim testament to the accuracy of his call and its effectiveness. For decades, Fox's story remained a poignant but relatively obscure chapter of the Italian campaign. His recommendation for the Medal of Honor was initially downgraded to a Distinguished Service Cross, a disparity many historians attribute to the racial climate of the time and the general neglect of the Italian theater's history. It was not until the 1990s, after a formal Army review of Valor Awards to African American soldiers in World War II, that the full scale of his sacrifice was re-examined. Suspense-driven question. Given the precision of his coordinates and the totality of the barrage, one haunting question remains for historians and military tacticians to ponder. In his final moments, as he heard the shells screaming in, did Lieutenant Colonel Fox have a contingency, a last-second chance for survival that the records could never capture? Or was his commitment to the mission's success absolute and without any possible escape? On January 13, 1997, President Bill Clinton presented the Medal of Honor to Fox's widow, Arlene, in a White House ceremony. 6 other African-American World War II veterans received the nation's highest honor that day, a belated but necessary correction of the historical record. Analysis: the realism of danger close and the psychology of sacrifice. Fox's action is a textbook, albeit extreme, example of a danger-close fire mission. Artillery called within 600 meters of friendly forces, requiring special clearance. His decision was not a spontaneous, emotional act of heroism in the Hollywood sense. It was the ultimate execution of his duty as an artillery observer, pushed to its logical conclusion. He possessed the situational awareness to understand that his own position was now the most valuable target on the battlefield. His training allowed him to push aside self-preservation and see the tactical landscape with cold clarity. His death had greater operational value than his life at that precise moment.
This story also forces us to confront the complex reality of saving others in war. He did not save the 600 Germans. He called fire to kill them to save his fellow Americans. The title's phrasing, "to save them all," refers to the larger American force and the integrity of the Allied line. His action was an act of targeted violence to achieve a strategic preservation. It underscores the brutal arithmetic of command and the profound weight of responsibility carried by officers in the field. Conclusion: the echo of a voice on the radio. The story of John R. Fox transcends a single act of valor. It is a lesson in leadership, professionalism, and the grim realities of combat, where the right decision is often the most terrible one. It is a story inextricably linked to the service of the Buffalo Soldiers in Italy, a narrative of men fighting 2 wars simultaneously. And ultimately, it is a story about voice, a calm, steady voice on a radio, cutting through static and fear, choosing certainty over hope and duty over life. That voice shaped the battlefield from a lonely stone room and echoes as a powerful testament to the cost of freedom. Call to action. If stories of profound courage and real-world history that challenge our understanding of sacrifice resonate with you, ensure you don't miss our deep dives into the past. Subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. We unearth these incredible narratives, giving them the detail and respect they deserve, and we deliver them directly to you. Join our community of engaged learners. Subscribe today.